Let's start at the beginning. I was born on Hitler's birthday. Sometimes I say that and someone shouts out 420 because it's also National Weed Day, which is fine. It would be a little concerning if it were the reverse. If I said I was born on 420 and someone yelled out Hitler's birthday, that would be a little bit different. Born on Hitler's birthday, different rising signs, same birthday. When I found out, I was very upset. I knew he was a bad guy. I was like 8 years old. And my mom came up to me and said, "Don't worry, Ben, you're going to balance out Hitler." That's a burden. Last name's Kirschenbaum. Can't uncircumcise a name like Kirschenbaum, right? Can't wrap a foreskin around those 12 letters. Not a very religious Jew. I got married last June, and oh, thank you, appreciate it. Oh, thanks. Didn't have a religious wedding. If you've never been to a religious Jewish wedding, the men and women are in separate rooms. I once went to one, I had a +1. I have no idea if she showed up. No way of knowing. Not religious. We wrote our own vows, which is a bit of a not religious thing. The traditional Jewish wedding, if you go like super Bible, is a bit of a man buying the wife type deal. Obviously very outdated, in this economy, right? Can't get a studio apartment, let alone a cool wife. My wife actually got a raise recently. That's awesome, right? Yeah. Thanks. Shouldn't tell you guys how much she makes, right? That's not discreet. $150,000. 6 figures. 8 if you include the 2 zeros after the decimal point. It's crazy to think that between the two of us cumulatively, we make over $150,000. I won't lie to you guys, I change that number depending on where I'm performing in the country. I don't know how much she makes, honestly. Apparently we're not at that point in our relationship or whatever, but if I'm in New York, I'll say 150 because I feel like it's high enough that it's impressive, low enough that it's not like obnoxious. But if I'm in the sticks in Wyoming, I'll say 2 million because I want to assert dominance. Become very spoiled when your spouse makes more money than you. She was explaining to me the raise a little bit. She's like, I make this for my base salary, and then I get this in stock options, and if I blow my boss, I get this. I'm like, can I buy a new Xbox or not? You take stock options, I take cash, all right? I was nervous about proposing. I was nervous about the ring. Right? My friend's like, it's got to be 3 months' salary. Luckily, it's my salary, but it's got to be this pricey thing. I got a good deal on the ring. I got the ring from a Hasidic Jewish salesman. He said I got an amazing deal. He said it was unbelievable, it was unheard of what he'd said. He said he said I was basically robbing him. I was like, jeez, I gave him extra. The guy's got a family. Little Mordecai's got to eat. Point is, I wrote my own vows. Dude, my vows were not good. Dude, they sounded like a suicide note, honestly. It's all just, I love you. I don't say it enough. It's not your fault. Everything's very intense with the wedding. The photos are a lot of them are just smiling, dancing, whatever. But some of them are the forehead to forehead dramatic photos. You've seen these on Instagram and stuff. They're almost depressing. There's just so many of my wife and I just. And you kind of got to look at the photographer as you do it, so you're doing this strange. My wedding was in Massachusetts. My ass was in Vermont. No one tells you to do that. They're not there just like, okay, this is the one where he's about to go off to war, and now let's just get a little kooky with it. How about we recreate images from history? Ben, for this one, you be JFK right after he was shot. And Rachel, you just sort of hover over him. For this next one, Ben, you be a protester in Tiananmen Square, and Rachel, you're a tank, all right? The thing is that dramatic photo shouldn't be between me and my wife. We're gonna see each other every day for the rest of our life, right? Right. That should be, thanks buddy. All right, a little confirmation on that one. That should be me and my best man. That's the relationship that'll change. Just be photo after photo of he and I just... There's still time. I had a great best man. He planned the bachelor party. There was always that one guy at the bachelor party that's like, it's your last night being single, man. You got to go all out. Last night. It's like, no, it's not my last night being single. I've been with my wife for 4 years. Right? My last night being single was our first date. That was, we hit it off. I knew she was the one. You know, so that night I called every prostitute I knew. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a very, like, raucous bachelor party. This is, at the bachelor party, the conversation came up where we all were on 9/11. If that subject's coming up, it's not The Hangover, you know? We start talking about it. New Yorkers here might know this. It becomes a bit of a competition for who was the closest to the events. I was like, I was in the Bronx, and my friend's like, I was in Manhattan. I was like, damn it. And then my other friend's like, I was also in Manhattan. What street? Street. And then there's always that one guy. Dude, that one guy who's like, I was in Connecticut, but my dad died in the towers. It's like, that wasn't the question. Objection, irrelevant. Way to make a fun game about you. New Yorkers are fun. My dad, I think, has become like a real New Yorker. He's from Russia originally, but he's been here for many decades. And they all have that kind of like mob mentality thing a little bit. Like, I asked him why he still has an AOL account. He said, loyalty. I was like, he's like, I've been hacked 1,000 times, but I never report it because I'm not a rat fuck. Take it easy. I'm a loyal guy. I've seen the same barber for 22 years. He's from Uzbekistan, and for a long time I thought it was Kazakhstan. But people in America, for better or worse, they don't care if you mix up the stands. They're very forgiving. China, Japan, they'll give you flack. With the stands, they're impressed if you're even close. You mix up Tajikistan with Turkmenistan, people are like, whoa, do you work for the UN? What? You just make stuff up. You just get, say Kablatistan, they're like, oh, they're Dora the Explorer. You know, my GPS became a person. Real Fareed Zakaria over here. That joke was for like 3 people. I don't like going to the barber because every time I go there, he looks at the top of my head and just says, less every time. And then he cackles like the Riddler. It's also like, dude, I know. Like, I understand. I've been to CVS. I've seen the overhead camera. I can't go to CVS anymore. I can't. That's why I didn't get the vaccine. Joking. That's not why I didn't get the vaccine. My barber said to me right before I got married, you know what you should do? You should go to Turkey because they have very cheap hair transplants in Turkey. Like, dude, that's gonna be a hard sell to my wife. Also, it would be strange on Instagram and stuff to go on your honeymoon balding and come back with a full head of hair. Have some uncle be like, whoa, she banged the hair back on you. It's like, yeah, sure. I had a good honeymoon. I went to Japan. That's pretty cool. Yeah? Yeah, I get very intimidated by customs. I started admitting things that aren't even true. The border agent's like, do you have any fruits and vegetables? I'm like, I have Coke up my ass. Use those fancy bidets. It'll pop right out. Yeah. Very bad flyer. Can't watch a movie, can't read a book, get too nervous. I look at the tracker, the thing, for 14 hours. I look at And it's gotten to the point where if I see that we're deviating off course, I will call over a flight attendant. She's like, sir, do you want a drink? I'm like, no, but you might want to tell Captain Morgan up there to lay off the sauce. All right. I see that we're dipping into Saskatchewan. Are we picking someone up? Is this a Delta rideshare? I don't start conversations. I'm not that level of anxious. You know, people who start conversations with you on planes are nervous based on how they start the conversation? It's usually not like, hi, how are you? It's like, anal thermometers are more accurate. I'm like, what? More you know. I'm worried about having a kid. Because what if the kid's nervous and I won't be able to comfort the kid? There'll be turbulence. He's like, Dad, are we going down? I'm like, probably. Look at your tracker. Eyes on the sky. Come on. Went to Japan. Here's a thing I'll tell you if you go on an exotic trip. Always do research beforehand. I was unaware that one of the main Japanese Buddhist symbols is a swastika. Not related to the Nazi symbol. I once said Nazi logo, by the way. I don't think that's the word that they had to show, as if they were between that and the fighting Nazis or whatever. Yeah. It's a little flipped over. It's like rotated about its axis. History joke. That's a fun one. Yeah, it's just like a weird, like, is this inappropriate to draw? Can you air draw a swastika? I don't know. Is that kosher? Or are you a bunch of cucks? No, I'm just kidding. It's a little creepy because I didn't know it going into it, and all of the temples on Google Maps are represented by swastikas. So it's strange to look at your phone and be like, oh, AI has turned against me. Finally get to a temple, there's a big swastika there. First thing they say is, please take off your shoes. I'm like, nice try. Not going anywhere without my hokas. Charles Manson had a swastika tattoo right on his head. You remember that? Yeah, it was really creepy. In all fairness, though, if you're gonna get a swastika tattoo, I know that's a big if. Forehead makes sense, I think. Like a loud and proud. No one's being like, oh, I'm thinking about getting a little swastika on my ankle. A lot of people do get swastika tattoos underneath their clothing so they can still like apply for jobs. But I guess Manson thought that ship had sailed at that point. What's that resume? Just all leadership skills? I would say do research before. Don't ask your friends what to do. I asked one friend, he gave me some pieces of advice mixed in with a 45-minute lecture on harakiri, which is Japanese ritual suicide. I didn't need to know this. He's just going on. He's just like, yeah, sometimes samurai would stab themselves in the stomach with a sword when they were late for lunch or whatever. Also, there's this great ice cream place in Osaka. I got ice cream once in Osaka. I went to that place, and Japan, very clean culture. And I went on the train, and the ice cream started dripping on the floor of the train. And thank God I had in my pocket a knife to kill myself. My wife stopped me because she doesn't respect Japanese culture. And I was on the verge. I was reading my vows. It was... Trains are so much nicer there. Trains in New York stink. I had a friend ask me what my favorite subway line is in New York. Which, if someone asks you that is a trick question. Because they're going to have some horror story about whatever answer you have. I said the Q train. They're like, the Q train? Someone groped my grandmother on the Q train. I was like, fine, the 2 train. They're like, the 2 train. Someone masturbated in front of my grandmother on the 2 train. It's like, listen, man, at this point, maybe it's your grandma's fault. I don't mean to be that guy, and I know she's 85 years old, but what was she wearing? The polka dot dress. Tell me where it ends. I was on the train recently. A woman kept sneezing on the train. And it was fine. Everyone ignored her or whatever. But it got me thinking, like, 4 years ago, that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah? 4 years ago, height of the pandemic, woman sneezing. Everyone else looks around just being like, should we shoot her? I don't want to throw her off. I don't want to get too close. I told my friend that I was going to do some COVID jokes, like on the special. And he's like, you can't do that, man. That's hack. Pandemic's over. You can't do it. It's like, it's probably more appropriate now than it was heart of the pandemic. Dude, when comedians in 2020 were like, oh, your grandpa's dead, how dead is he? It's like, Jesus, dude. Now that joke's hilarious, I guess, you know, because there's Paxlovid or whatever. Paxlovid is a great drug. You know that it's the perfect antidote because it rhymes with the disease. It's perfect. One day they'll discover goop is for lupus, and I can't, You know where we are in the pandemic, by the way, because Paxlovid, the main side effect is that you might get COVID again. That happened to my mom. Which tells you where we're at, that scientists are like, yeah, take Paxlovid. What's the worst that can happen? You get COVID again? It's a head cold, pansy. Make jokes about COVID. You could talk about the pandemic forever. It was a major world event. Yeah? You think someone brought up World War II a few years after it happened, and someone else was like, dude, shut up. It's so... That comment was so 1943. Went to Hiroshima in Japan. You see what I just did? Brought it back. Full swastika, you know. Hiroshima's cool. Totally rebuilt city. There is a KFC on the main strip of Hiroshima. I was just like, Jesus Christ, haven't we done enough to this place? Still deploying Colonel Sanders. I'll say one more thing about Japan. I went to a lot of the hot baths. They're like these like jacuzzi type things. Went like every day to these things. Everyone's completely naked and you're very self-conscious at first, but after like 3 days, you're whipping people with towels. You're all in. Just making little jokes, just being like, oh, I dropped the soap. Just kidding, it's a wall dispenser. Nobody here speaks English. I have no semen left. I boiled my balls like ramen for a week. A lot of people conceive a child on their honeymoon. I took a hard ride on that. I just steam my scrotum like gyoza. There's a population growth problem in Japan. I think I found the culprit. Everyone's just toasting their testes like milk bread. That joke proves that in order to write a joke, all you need is a thesaurus and a Japanese cookbook. I hope I'm fertile. Should be the name of the special, you know. I do want kids one day. Know that about myself. I think that a lot of guys don't understand that it's easy for them to say, that women actually have to go through the whole thing. I feel like guys felt that way in particular after Serena Williams won the Australian Open while she was pregnant. I think that might have made a lot of husbands less sympathetic to their pregnant wives. A wife like 6 months pregnant, she's exhausted. She's like, honey, I have a craving for a pickle. Can you please get one for me from the fridge? And the husband's like, yeah, sure. Serena Williams won a goddamn Grand Slam when she was pregnant. Can't serve yourself. She was serving 110. You have a craving for a pickle? You know what she had a craving for? Victory. I had to get a DNA test before getting married. The rabbi who married us said that because my wife's also Jewish, we had to get the DNA test to see if the kids would have diseases, which he's implying. He's implying that we're cousins. Yeah. It's like, dude, the sex is already hot. You don't have to make it hotter. Einstein married his cousin. That's a common fact, right? It's interesting because he cheated on her consistently throughout the marriage, which shows you how different of a time and place it was. Because in most places in America, you marry your cousin now, you're probably, like, into it. Why else are you... You're not marrying them for the Facebook status or to improve your reputation. But it makes sense. I mean, listen, I'm 34. If I were still single, my family would be setting me up with relatives. Of course. They'd be like, remember Rebecca from your bar mitzvah? Just go on one day with her. If you don't like her, she has a sister. nervous about the DNA test. I'm a hypochondriac in general. I'm the kind of hypochondriac that tries to convince the doctor that I have things. I once had a twitch in my arm for like, I don't know, half a day. I went to the doctor and I was convinced it was multiple sclerosis, like 100% sure. It doesn't run in my family. And the guy's like, no, you obviously don't have multiple sclerosis. And I was like, what about just one? One sclerosis. How about a mix of multiple sclerosis and Lou Gehrig's disease? Just multiple Lou Gehrig's. Or the Yankees, for short. Got the results back. The guy's like, you have the gene for inborn congenital hearing loss. And I was like, oh my God. I'm deaf. He's like, no, obviously you're not deaf. You're a carrier for... I'm like, what? He's like, you're a carrier for inborn hearing loss. But I become an idiot. The guy's like, don't worry about it. There's only a 1 in 8,000 chance that your kid is going to get it. And I was like, you're telling me that if I have 8,000 kids, there's a 100% chance one of them's going to get it? He's like, no, dude, that's not how math works at all. I'm like, listen, man, I'm deaf, not dumb, okay? Can I have my son, nephew, or not? Dude, I once said that joke at a show. I said son, nephew at the end, and someone screamed out, you mean son, cousin once removed. I'm like, okay. What a weird time to be a know-it-all. People are know-it-alls, yeah? This happened to me recently. I ordered a scotch at a bar, and the guy's like, no, it's only scotch if it's from Scotland. Otherwise, it's whiskey. You know the word sodomy comes from the biblical town of Sodom. Do you think people were pretentious back then about that? Coming back from like Jericho, being like, hey, I was just sodomized. And the guy's like, actually, it's only sodomy if you're from Sodom. You just got butt fucked. Kids are know-it-alls. I have this little cousin, he's about 8 years old. He became a real grammar nerd. We were getting ice cream, I said you could have whatever flavor you want, and he said, actually, it's whichever. Then he said he wanted cookies and cream, and I was like, actually, it's cookies, cream. An apostrophe there, stunkin' white. I'm a bit of a know-it-all in one specific way. Ever since I was little, know every Best Picture to the Oscars. Yeah, so if you like name me a year, I can tell you which movie made that year won Best Picture. Weird thing. You can shout out a year just to prove it.
1944.
1944 was Going My Way, which is starring a guy. Yeah, this is a real thing. I don't know where the clitoris is, but I know this. You understand me? 1944 is Going My Way, starring a guy named Bing Crosby, who back in the day, by the way, they would just give you a nickname after sounds. Bing Crosby, Buzz Aldrin, that Queef Magooby, famous saxophonist.
1968.
1968. Oh, Oliver. Yeah. A lot of musicals won at that time, which is interesting that 50s, 60s, it's a very homophobic society. And yet, everyone's like, My Fair Lady was fabulous. You know, like, Audrey's dress is to die for. I like lists in general, by the way. This is like, I love movies, but it's more the list thing that gets me. BuzzFeed, I go on that all the time with a little cute list, the top 5 inches of Paul Giamatti's cock or whatever they put on the. It's all great.
83.
What was it?
83.
83 Terms of Endearment. Great movie. Yeah. Oh, we got to. Oh. Shirley MacLaine in the back. All right. Shirley MacLaine, Jack Nicholson. People think that I know like all trivia because I know this one thing. Like I had a friend, Jack Nicholson's the star of that movie. I had one friend, he's like, did you know that I was born on Jack Nicholson's birthday? Why would I know? How am I supposed to know you were born on April 22nd? That's the only birthday I know. Oh, and Jessica Lange, because that's 420 also. And Willem Dafoe, that's July 22nd. That's just my guy. Can you give me another? Go for it.
1951.
What was it? 1951 was An American in Paris, which is not the preview to the Paris Hilton sex tape. Different. 1959. Oh, Ben-Hur, which is my name and pronoun if I transitioned. Here's the other thing I'm going to say. Just to specify, it is the year that the movie came out that I'm doing, not the year of the award ceremony. Because someone once said to me that I got it wrong and we got into a fight and it was a whole... It's a very weird... People debating Best Picture don't get into fist fight. I mean, it's a dance-off at best, yeah. It's West Side Story style. 1961. I got any others? You can shout it out.
56.
What was it?
56.
Around the World in 80 Days, which is a horror movie. God, hot air balloon without a tracker. You know what I'm saying? What else we got?
42.
What was it?
42.
42. Mrs. Miniver. Yeah. Greer Garson. Hubbana.
53.
From Here to Eternity. That's the hot scene on the beach. Yeah. No, we all remember. Yeah. No, I haven't seen a lot of these. I haven't seen Mrs. Miniver. I'm not a freak. You can keep shouting them out. Go for it.
94.
94 was Forrest Gump. Yeah. That movie inspired me to start running. That's a true thing. I'd never gone running before in my life, and I started running. But my friends running is so boring. Why would you go running? It's yeah, man, running's only boring if you're in shape. If you're hyperventilating, you're occupied. He's like, what, do you listen to music? Do you listen to a podcast? I'm like, no, I'm listening to my heart beat through my chest.
2017.
What was it?
2017.
Shape of Water, which is basically E.T. if Elliot fucked E.T. Sorry to spoil it. What do we got?
99.
99, American Beauty, which is about Kevin Spacey creeping on a younger woman. It was a big stretch. Because she was a woman. You got it. Come on.
76.
76. Oh, Rocky. Yeah. I love Rocky. Rocky's great because I love that all of the sequels use Roman numerals. It's fun that the main character wouldn't understand the title of his own movie. Rocky IV? That's what I inject my steroids with.
1918.
Oh, 1918, there weren't Oscars yet. Best Picture was a photo. It starts... It starts in 27 was the first one. Wings was the first. 27, 28.
23.
Oh, well, Oppenheimer. So that's the most recent. So that's what I'm saying. Oppenheimer would count as 2023 in my... Also, serious movies always win, by the way. They don't give credit. Oppenheimer, The Intense One. They don't give credit to comedies at all. They don't give it... Someone say La La Land? No, La La Land lost. That was the whole... What are you, Warren Beatty? Come on. No. Lost to Moonlight. Still living in the past. Dude, they don't respect comedies at all. I bet you that this year, because he's only famous for The Naked Guns, they won't even put OJ in the in memoriam. That's... Oppenheimer, so a lot of movies are based off true stories when they do that. I don't know. I think that people, always say, spoiler alert, and then they're like, oh, but that's based off a true story, so it's not really a spoiler. It's it depends on what you're spoiling, right? If you say that they drop a bomb in Oppenheimer, obviously you should know that. But if you're oh, Florence Pugh's nipples are a little bigger than you thought, that ruins the movie. Spoiler alert is a fun alert, by the way, in general. It's one of the few alerts that people give, and then they just choose to do the thing anyway. Most alerts aren't like that, right? No one's about to kidnap a kid and is like, Amber Alert. Actually, afterwards, they're on the stand. They're like, I said Amber Alert. Wait. Wasn't a twist.
What year did Woody win?
What year did Woody win? I like how you're on a first-name basis. Woody won 1977, Annie Hall. Great movie by a innocent man. 72, Godfather. 72 is Godfather. Those mobster movies make me realize that I would be a terrible gangster, by the way. Because I think I would misunderstand all the innuendo and accidentally kill everybody. The boss would be like, hey, can you buy Tony a ticket to Chicago? I'd be like, yeah. Yeah, I could buy Tony a ticket to Chicago. Hey, my wife's sick. Would you take care of her? Oh, you cold bastard. Something I could do. Godfather's great. Al Pacino. Yeah, amazing. Al Pacino. That was 1972, and the guy's still having kids. His wife, I think, is like, her girlfriend is like 30 years old. And someone said to me, like, oh, she's just marrying him because he's Al Pacino. I'm like, she has no idea who Al Pacino is. Talking about. Yeah. I'll tell you this. I posted this on YouTube, me doing the thing, and someone said underneath, this isn't comedy, this is autism. They're like, this guy's just Rain Man. I was like, huh, 1988. Yeah. Oh, we got someone. Did someone say 88? Oh, you know it. Or, do you know the Oscar stuff too?
I only know that word.
You only know Rain. I can't tell if it's more autistic or less autistic to only know Rain Man. Just honed in on that. Oh, come on. Thank you. It's not a helpful skill if you don't. That's why I just did it, right? I've just been desperately looking for some way. Doesn't help you on the SATs, doesn't. I tutored the SATs. I once tutored a kid that was one of the popular girls. She was so mean. I was tutoring her a math problem, and she just looks up at me and says, "You're such a nerd." And I wish I were a more secure person, but immediately I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. I don't know this stuff. I tricked your mom. I tricked your mom into giving me this job. Do you want me to buy you alcohol? I'll buy you alcohol. You want a Juul? I once had this kid, Brad, who asked me if I could score him Adderall. Which is like, that's not an age thing. That's a prescription. You have a way better shot at getting Adderall than I do. You go to a psychiatrist and, look out the window for 2 minutes. They'll give you the keys to the apothecary. Why does he think that? He thinks all tutors are in cahoots with Big Pharma? Get it, and then we'll do it together. Sessions will go way better. Just not talk to each other for 45 minutes, just locked in. Mom walks in, like, what's going on? I'm like, it was his idea to crush it up. I read an article that said the SATs are going to make a point of using more diverse names in their word problems. Because sometimes you miss a math problem because you don't relate to the main character. All these years I thought white kids tend to do better on those tests because of the wage gap and private schools and tutoring. But it turns out it's because Brian and Leslie are moving in trains in opposite directions and not Omar and Martina. I hope the SAT goes all the way, though. I hope they try to cure racial stereotypes once and for all. They have a math problem that's like, Li Yang drives at 60 miles per hour. She's a very good driver, both safe and efficient. Her mother isn't hovering and she doesn't play the piano or the violin. Anyway, what's the square root of 9? No, but I did like Tudor. I live on the same block as 2 frozen yogurt places. There's a Pinkberry and a 16 Handles. And I've noticed that a lot of high school kids hang out outside the 2 places. And all the popular kids are outside the Pinkberry, and all the unpopular kids are outside the 16 Handles. And before you're like, I'm some sort of creep, I'm basing off of looks. That's not what I'm basing off, okay? I'm not a creep. I'm basing off the fact that I stand behind them and listen to everything they say. The popular kids at the Pinkberry are talking about one thing and one thing only: politics. That's what I don't know when that happened, when that became the cool thing. You can't be homecoming queen now without a position on fracking. But they talk about politics in a very like new agey Gen Z type way. They're like, Putin would never drop a nuke. He's a Libra with Cancer rising. Like, oh, great. That's how history will be written, by the way. They're going to write history. Textbooks will be like Vladimir Putin, he, him. I assume. I don't know how he signs off on his emails. Vladimir Putin, he, him, never dropped a nuke. Cancer risings prefer ground wars. That's why the symbol's the crab. You gotta stay low. The unpopular kids at the 16 Handles, they're talking about the frozen yogurt at the 16 Handles. Dude, one kid's like, if you mix cake batter with almonds, it tastes like marzipan. It's like, you're gonna die alone, buddy. I prefer the frozen yogurt at 16 Handles, but I can't go to it. I can't. It's social suicide. I can't. Unpopular kids are very easy to hang out with. They're very good audiences. They're good for a comedian. Like one kid was pumping rum raisin into his cup. I was like, hope you're not driving tonight. Kid lost his mind. I told him the cookies and cream joke soiled himself. He just... Younger kids are stressful too, yeah? I have 2 little nieces who I wanted to get a gift for, and it was like 3 years old, like a birthday party. And I should preface this by saying I'm bad at gifts in general. I once got my wife a gift. It was Valentine's Day. I got her a digital picture frame, which she said is a gift for your grandma. And I got defensive. I was like, yeah, and you know what my grandma would say? Thank you. What a nice boy. How do I use this? Who are you? She's not doing well. The gift I got for the kids was these Sesame Street themed books about the Jewish holidays. And the kid's parents said, why did you get this for my kid? Because apparently for the Passover book, if you don't know the story of Passover, a big part of it is that the Jews are enslaved in the story. So on about page 3, there's a picture of Grover whipping 3 Elmos. First of all, offensive. We don't all look alike. The other messed up thing is that, I guess it's like Sesame Street, you gotta stay kind of peppy or whatever. So the Elmos are like, sort of smiling. It's like, dude, I knew about Tickle Me, but this is some kinky. I like to think of how they landed on Elmo as representing the Jews. That was probably a tough decision. They probably went through characters and were like, well, we can't do Big Bird. That's quite the schnoz. Snuffleupagus, forget about it. Elmo sounds like Shlomo. Let's just... Oh, with that. I guess the Jews built the pyramids. Some people say that aliens built the pyramids, which is, they always take credit away from the Jews when it's a positive thing. Never with a negative thing. No one's like, oh, aliens ran Epstein's Island. No, that's definitely Jews. When that Epstein list came out, my friend texted me, did you see that the Jeff Epstein list came out? Jeff? Calls him Jeff. Only people who call that guy Jeff are people who know nothing about the case and people who were on that island. I want to see an interview with someone denying allegations, accidentally call him Jeff. Just being like, no, I don't know. Jeff Epstein? J-Man? Sweet Baby J? Doesn't ring a bell. I like inspirational YouTube videos. Sorry, there's no transition from the Epstein thing. You can't transition from the Epstein list. There's no other topic where it's like, speaking of David Copperfield, Stephen Hawking, and Bill Clinton. No, there's no... There's this one inspirational video that I always loved. It's like 3 minutes. An anthropologist teaches a monkey sign language. And then something very sad happens. The anthropologist, she has a miscarriage. And she tells the monkey, and the monkey goes like this. Unbelievable. Here's the thing. Only a monkey could get away with that reaction. I think if a person did that, it would come across as rude and sarcastic. Somewhere like I lost the baby and you were like... I know some of you think that's offensive to people who are hearing impaired because they actually use sign language, but I am deaf, so I can make that joke. I was talking to my dad recently about how the HIV virus started with monkeys. And of course, my dad said the same thing everyone says. They're just like, oh, that means someone must have had sex with a monkey. It's like, dude, no one even considers that someone did intravenous drugs with a monkey. That's rock bottom. If you're sharing needles with a monkey, that's not good. Because you're addicted to a horrible drug, and you couldn't even find anyone else to do it with you. So you resorted to a monkey, and he's not gonna pay. The monkey's not. Plus, you gotta shave the arm and wrap the band. The whole process, the money, the time. And then on top of that, you get HIV. And your one companion, the monkey, also has HIV. At that point, fine, have sex with the monkey. What do you have to lose? What, are you gonna have sex with a monkey with a condom? Mr. Conventional? I like inspirational YouTube videos. My ex-girlfriend is actually now married to a guy who has a TED Talk that has over 40 million views. Thousands of which are me. No, I used to watch it out of spite, but now I'm married. I just watch it to learn or whatever. Ideas worth spreading or whatever their slogan is. The only thing spreading is that guy's herpes, right? That's the comment I left under. I'll give you one more video. It's a Christmas video. A family, mom, dad, little girl underneath the Christmas tree. And the little girl has one arm. She's like 10 years old. She has one arm, born with one arm. And they're opening up her gifts, and it's a robotic arm. And it's incredible. They show the technology behind it. It's like she has two arms now. One thing about that video. Why did the parents wait till Christmas to get her this gift? They didn't discover it on December 24th. They waited weeks, maybe months, to get her this gift? Are we calling medical devices gifts? What's gonna happen a few years from now? She's gonna have an allergic reaction to something. The mom's gonna be like, honey, go to Duane Reade, get an EpiPen. The dad's gonna be like, when's the kid's birthday? We don't want to spoil her. I have great parents, though. I had very bad separation issues as a kid. Very, very bad separation issues. You know you have bad separation issues when, as a field trip, they would take us to the tenement museum where the immigrants came in, and they'd be like, this whole family lived in a room that was only 200 square feet, and you'd be like, well, that's the life. They're like 8-year-old kids would go to the factory with their dads. I'm like, every day is take your son to work day? Textiles with Pop? Oh my God. Make little jokes, like we have similar techniques. I'm like, I guess we really are cut from the same cloth. And we laugh and laugh. Good bonding. My wife is also very close with her parents. At the beginning of last year, my wife's dad had a health scare. And then a couple months ago, my wife's mom had a health scare, and she's okay. But while it was happening, my wife was very upset. We're lying in bed together, and she says to me, do you think my mom is going to die before my dad? And I said, no. And then she said, do you think my dad is going to die before my mom? What is this riddle? I start making stuff up. I'm like, no, it's gonna be like a Romeo and Juliet type thing where it's around the same time. It'll be like the end of Titanic with the old couple, 1997. But end of. They'll just be in bed together. Maybe they'll do this thing. You know, it's like sentiment. Eventually, I was like, listen, I'm sorry. I hate to be, a downer, but we can't be delusional. Yes, one day, your parents will die. Everyone dies. Except my parents. Just how it works. Close with my parents. You know that you're close with your parents when you're dating in the early dates, you bring them up very early on. I was like 15 minutes into a first date, 15 minutes, and I asked the date what her mom did for a living. Not good. No pickup artist book is going to recommend that. The Game or whatever, they're not going to be like, yeah, first ask about the mom's profession, close on her grandma's hobbies. Yeah. Also wear a little bit of a bright color. She said she's an actor. The date was like, my mom's an actor. I was like, oh, cool, she's an actress. She said, no, she's an actor. Actress is demeaning. It implies that they're not as good, is what she told me. And then she asked what my mom did for a living. I was like, oh, God. I wish there was a better way to say this. She's a doctress. Wish there was a better term for it. She's like, don't you mean doctor? I'm like, whoa, she's not that good. My mom teaches at a medical school. She told me that there's a new class at her medical school called Improv for Doctors. Real class and accredited. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an improv class for med students. I don't think that the whole yes and mentality would work in an operating room. I don't think you'd be in front of a patient and be like, we've got to remove the kidney. Yes, and the prostate. Yes, and now the prostate is a hat. We're losing the patient. Get the defibrillator. No need. I'm a defibrillator. And I'm British. I'm British defibrillator. Gonna be hard to get to the patient, though, considering we're on the moon. Oh, my God. Close with my mom. I talk to my mom on the phone every day. It goes the same way every time. She says, Ben, just to warn you, you are on speakerphone. I ask her who else is there. She says, no one. Which doesn't bother me that much. The only phone etiquette thing that bothers me is when you're on the phone with someone and you're losing connection and they blame your service. I take that very personally for some reason. You're losing connection, and the guy's like, I think it's you. I'm like, I think your wife's a whore. You come after my family plan? I'll come after your family, all right? Your kids don't look like you. Get a service test when you get a paternity test, my friend. Talk to my mom on the phone. She does the same thing every time. She describes to me scene for scene, word for word, the most recent episode of Law & Order SVU she just watched. Calling it Law & Order SUV, without fail. It's never been SVU. One time she's like, oh, why do I always say that? What's Law & Order SUV? I'm like, it's nothing. It's a policeman's Jeep? Once walking down the street with my mom, and a woman was approaching us about a half block away, and before she's in earshot, my mom mutters to me under her breath. She says, that's Debbie Rubin. You haven't seen her since you were a little boy. 3 years ago, her husband died climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Don't say anything. It's like, Mom, do you really expect me to go through a 2-minute conversation and not once mention the tallest mountain peak in Africa? What else are we going to talk about? First thing that happens, Debbie comes up to us. She's like, Ben, I haven't seen you in so long. You grew so tall. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, yeah, I'm tall. I'm on 19,435 feet tall, right? Recently, I went to my mom's place, and she looked very upset. And I said, what's wrong? She said, I don't want to tell you. I said, what's wrong? Maybe I could cheer you up. She said, okay, fine. I was with my lifelong friend today, Leslie. And ever since we were in middle school, Leslie's always bragged about having very big breasts. It's like been her thing. And recently, she doesn't think that they look as good because she's getting older, so she wants to get a boob job. And my mom says to Leslie, you don't have to do that. And Leslie responded to my mom, you don't get it. You never had good tits. Here's the thing. I know what I could say to cheer my mom up. I can't say it. I can't. But you know in theory what you could, but you can't. But I know what I could. I can't be like, well, would I have breastfed if those were in prime? I can't say that to my mom. I think I thread the needle. I think that I struck a balance. I was like, listen, who needs tits with an ass like that? All right, you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you. Come on. Oh, wow, thanks. All right, thanks. No. Congratulations, Russ and Jackie. Come on.
Ben Kirschenbaum, everybody, come on.